Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bring a Trailer podcast. Alex Porter here. On today's episode, I am joined by Zach, Beck, and Cam to discuss George Lucas's classic film, American Graffiti. We had a lot of fun rewatching this one, or in the case of a couple of my co-hosts, watching it for the first time. We also discuss the cars at length, the making of the film, the production behind it. Hope everyone enjoys it. Thanks, as always, to our producer, Chris Baxter.
Bring a Trailer podcast.
All right, American Graffiti, here we are. We're doing it. I want to start with hearing from all of you about your history with this movie. We were always going to do this one. It's an important one, but I want to start with Zach specifically because the reason this is only our fourth BAT at the movies is because you requested it. So what's your history with the movie, Zach, and why this one so early?
And this is also my first movie podcast with you guys, I think.
No, you did Fast and Furious.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That just
You're losing your mind.
You've been on 50% of them.
No.
This is only our fourth.
I was getting confused because I'm like a hybrid of Vin Diesel and Paul Walker in my real life. So it's all just kind of blurring together.
Did you see our new artwork in the studio? Shout out Emily. Really well done.
And I'm slowly replicating Paul Walker's garage one car at a time.
You are. I actually think isn't that your favorite one, Cam? The
What?
Tyrese Fast and Furious. We're putting to some artwork that was Paul Walker and Tyrese.
Too Fast?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one I'm most familiar with. That was like my era of Fast and Furious. Did Emily do that?
She she got it for us after listening to you talk about your love for Tyrese.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, sorry to derail us. We can take a few decades step back into the Fast and the Furious of the 1970s, which was set in 1962, I believe.
Made in 73, set in 62. I would have always told you this was a 50s movie, but it's actually set in the early 60s.
And George Lucas's second film, which we'll get into a little more later on, I think. It's kind of a romantic look of his own upbringing and life in the Central Valley of California, which resonates very closely to me and a bit with you, Alex, and maybe Beck and Cameron have a little bit of that life growing up.
A little bit.
But yeah, for me, man, there's so many different angles on this. But the thing that I think it does the best depiction of is the feeling of owning a cool car at that time and place and what it does for your own self-image and self-esteem and what the opposite does. Toad's character is like the embodiment of that, just so through and through, rolling up on the Vespa, but also the 2CV in the opening scene when he just kicks it because he hates it so much. It's all just really resonates with me.
When was the first time you saw it? And how long it had been since you watched it again?
I think I saw it, maybe I was like a freshman in high school, maybe even like late middle school. And then the stuff that stood out mostly was just kind of the music and the era of it all. And then I watched it a couple times in college, which was great. And then rewatching it just this last week brought up a lot of stuff. I was like, oh man, that totally slipped by me. But more in the negative sign of the times type stuff. I know Cameron had some strong opinions of that before we get on, but no trigger warnings on this podcast.
No, we need to talk about all of it. It does age with you interestingly. Beck, did you see this when you were young too?
No. My first time ever seeing it was for this podcast. And I'm actually kind of appreciative of that because I don't think I would have appreciated this if I saw it as a teenager. I think I would have probably found it as kind of boring and unrelatable. I grew up in the city where I had a car and like I went and got lost on Friday and Saturday nights for sure. But like cruising, I didn't have friends who were into it too. I definitely didn't have like a group of friends that were into cars too. So in that sense, I couldn't really attach to it, I don't think.
It's so surprising for me to hear you say that, Beck. And don't take this the wrong way, but meeting you as an adult today, you just have the appearance of someone that was raised in the 1950s.
This is probably true.
Your background with cars makes it seem like you would have been somebody who would have been cruising with your buddies.
I was the one guy who owned a car.
Oh.
They'd all get in the car and come with me. I was always like the driver.
Which was an Alfa Milano?
Alfa Romeo Milano, 4-door, which is great. Honestly, when you're actually like having a 4-door car with 5 belts is like actually super helpful. Would definitely shove more than just 5 people in there sometimes. But I loved cars, but I didn't really have friends who were super into it. One or two might sort of know it, but we didn't really go cruising that much. I would go out for drives, but I don't think this movie would have resonated in the same way because I felt kind of different in that sense. Like it wasn't like a group of people that I was hanging around with who were out cruising. But now as an adult and looking back, I truly enjoyed it. I thought it was just such a great watch. While it is kind of, compared to modern times, a slower film for sure, in the context of George Lucas and also his first film, which is beyond slow, it is actually, that context is still very enjoyable.
You've seen THX 1138?
I have
I've
a
never
couple
seen
times.
it. Have either of you guys seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. His third movie, it's worth mentioning, is Star Wars. So it's pretty impressive. Had you seen it before, Cam?
No, similar to Beck, this was my first time seeing it. And also,
Have you seen Star Wars before?
what's that? Spaceballs? No, but also similar to Beck, I don't think this would have resonated with me had I seen this during high school. I did have two buddies in high school that were the only kids in school with old cool cars. Shout out Stan and Jacob. But Stan had an old, I think it was a second gen Thunderbird that he had cut the pipes off of it, and he was full greaser guy. And so I had a little bit of that energy in my life. But funny enough, like the area that I grew up in, San Diego, we had a classics night on El Cajon Boulevard every week that all of the heads would come out in their old 32 Fords and their Bel Airs and stuff, and we would go walk around that. So I did have exposure to a lot of these cars early on.
And to some cruising culture, because San Diego is strong on that, LA and San Diego.
Yeah, a little bit. I can't say I was super ingrained in it, but I definitely saw these types of cars rolling around when I was younger. And I also am glad that I saw for the first time at this age, because I have much more of an appreciation and nostalgic feel for that time in my life. And I think it just allowed me to kind of appreciate the cruising culture and what that would have been like in high school.
Totally.
It would have been so fun.
Was there cruising in Zach?
Kind of. It definitely wasn't the same arm out the window hollering at girls, but at least not for me and my friends. But definitely, that's kind of like what you did on Friday and Saturday night if you'd have at least partially full tank of gas and no other money. You just kind of cruise around, meet up with people. All of the stuff where people are leaning out their cars and asking where there's something to do, that's still so relevant to my upbringing of like just trying to figure out somewhere to go, whether it's the Safeway parking lot or deeper into Sac, and people going off having their own adventures and antics, and then all meeting up in a different parking lot at a different point.
Fast food places too, probably fast food joints. That's what I remember doing, right? Like everyone hanging out at Taco Bell or whatever.
Bit of that. One of my favorite things that you have to be like a Valley kid to really pick up on is the entire movie. It's all night. It's night to morning.
Yes.
And they're in short sleeves the entire time because it's so hot in the summer in the Valley that it cools off to 80 degrees at night. And then when they go to the radio station, Wolfman Jack's just sucking down popsicles because it's so hot in there, and it probably doesn't even have AC. So yeah, little stuff like that makes me laugh and nostalgic of Valley upbringing. In and Out was huge.
100%. Similar to you, I'd seen it in high school. A lot of the movies we've been doing, I had seen them because they were like in the car movie canon. Same thing with Bullet. We haven't done it yet, but like Le Mans, Grand Prix, those movies, which we will definitely do. Same thing, right? Like you're supposed to see them. And I did, it's interesting hearing you say it, Cam, I did have by maybe junior year car buddies, like the guys that I was in auto shop with and stuff, we all had cars and they were into cars. So I watched these movies with them, thought they were cool, but obviously didn't resonate enough that I didn't rewatch them for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then maybe 10 years ago or so, I put American Graffiti on, and it's become kind of a rewatchable staple for me. Like put it on and kind of fall asleep to it. Like I actually had not seen the end in a long time, like the race. So I've seen the beginning half like a bunch of times recently. It's like a comforting movie to me because I don't need story or plot or anything. I love a vibes movie, and this is an excellent vibes movie.
I can't believe you never saw the race.
I had seen it a long time ago, but hadn't made it to that part in a long time, which is great.
Harrison Ford's so strong in that movie. I think it's his first movie ever. And he's got like 11 lines or something.
Almost none. And he looks so cool. I'd forgotten it. He doesn't show up till pretty late into it, right?
Pretty late into it. Cowboy hat is fantastic. He's also like in his 30s. Like
he's 31.
He's already not young. But then I think people have all heard it, like the storyline that he was like a carpenter ahead of time. He was like working on sets, right? This is definitely, I think, was his first legit role. And for this to then, well, funny enough to think about who's in this movie and who carries on in their careers, and arguably his is the largest, right, afterward. And yet he's certainly not the protagonist, obviously. He's the villain, and he's not that important until the very end.
Small role, but memorable.
Yeah.
Roll bar in the 55. I have a whole section for the cars. Let's talk a little bit about the background of the movie, and I think that'll launch us into some stuff. So like you said, second movie for Lucas, made in 1973. encouraged by Francis Ford Coppola. I don't know if you noticed that. I didn't notice that till this rewatch, the most recent one. Francis Ford Coppola, producer, right up on there. That actually helped get the movie made. He encouraged Lucas after THX 1138 to write something about his youth and growing up. $775,000 budget, made $200 million. It's one of the most profitable movies of all time because it was re-released after Star Wars in 78 with better sound and a couple scenes put back into it.
Yeah.
And so it made $40 million on that run. Nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director, which I didn't realize, which is awesome. I mean, critically acclaimed at the time, 4 stars from Roger Ebert. Pauline Kael didn't like it. She doesn't like anything, but loved by most people. 95% on Rotten Tomatoes today. I mean, it was more of an iconic movie than I realized.
It was a really enjoyable watch for me. I would go back and watch it again for sure.
Goes down easy, right?
Yeah.
Also up against 73, some heavy hitters.
Oh,
Did you
dude.
look?
It's crazy. The Sting cleaned up that year.
Yeah.
The Sting won
Enter
Best
the
Picture.
Dragon is 73 also,
That's right.
and The Exorcist.
Yeah, Exorcist actually won some Oscars, which was, I think maybe still is rare. Well, Sinners just won some Oscars, but rare for a horror movie to win. That movie freaked me out. Another one I watched in high school because I felt like I had to, and I've not stomached a rewatch on that one.
What's funny is The Sting feels like such an older film, like the
Totally.
way it's shot. So not to go on like the shot tangent always, but this is I believe it's Techniscope is what it's shot on, which is a normal 35 millimeter film, but not very tall vertically, which is why he got the wide angle. It's a cheap way of doing films because you can get more frames per foot of film. And thus it also allows for, because it's a much smaller shutter, it's a much smaller camera. So you can attach it to cars, you can do a very documentary feel. And that's kind of how this feels. It actually kind of feels like Bullet in some ways. It's very naturally lit. It's not naturally lit. There's tons of lights being used, but it's shot in a way that nothing's done on a set. Feels very real. And I think that's actually a lot of the enjoyment of it.
Oh,
because you
totally.
feel like you're there and you're a part of it.
Yeah.
Super NorCal.
I just read a little bit about
Hella NorCal, Alex.
Hella NorCal. Yeah.
to kind of make it feel a bit more natural because there's so much conversation in this movie. He employed like a lot of 1 camera on each person. So they didn't have to really focus on hit your mark on the camera. And it definitely came off that way. Like it felt like you were very much in the dialogue that was happening.
And it's improvisational too.
And such good background.
Yes.
There's just the right cars in the background everywhere.
Mel's.
Something like 3
Mel's.
Do you know where that
cars.
Mel's existed?
Is that San Rafael? So like, do you know about
140 South Van Ness? That was
this in
right by it.
SF. Okay.
And then now it's housing.
Fascinating semi-troubled production. Started in San Rafael. Couldn't do it in Modesto, which is where it's supposed to be set, his hometown. Interestingly, Zach, I hadn't thought about your observation about short sleeves, but like they actually filmed it on coastal Northern California, so it actually wouldn't have been that warm. Probably.
San Rafael gets pretty hot.
Yeah, it does. And
Not
then,
And then
Good
they
time.
bumped to Petaluma.
right, had to move to Petaluma because San Rafael kicked him out, which
Which
is
was probably
hilarious.
prime because it would have been like 60 to 70 degrees at night. But if they actually shot Modesto, all the actors would just have sweat all over them.
Which might have been good.
Can we do a little Mel's Corner? here?
Oh, do
History of
Mel's. Yeah.
So Mel's, if you don't know, a chain of diner style, very 50s style diner restaurants in California. I did not realize there's actually 2 competing companies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's Mel's Drive-In, which is what I only know. There's about 8 of them. There's 3 of them in San Francisco.
What's the
alone.
one on Geary?
They're all Mel's Drive-In
Okay.
in San Francisco. Then there's Original Mel's, and it's because the original creator of it started it in 47 in San Francisco, went out of business in the 70s. Then his son rebooted Mel's Diner with his father. They got in an argument, split up the company, and the father made Original Mel's, which to this day has 22 locations, and the son with Mel's Diner has 8. But they still exist as 2 separate companies.
Interesting.
No idea.
Yeah,
But-
I had no idea before this.
Which is the one in the movie where they all, the
It's Mel's
opening scene.
Drive-In.
And that one is in San Francisco, Zach?
Yes, it was once in San Francisco, South of Market, Mission area.
Have any of you ever seen Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? The Sidney Poitier, like, okay, they go to Mel's Drive-In in that too.
Oh,
It's
really?
it's kind of like a stable, Katharine Hepburn. I think she goes there with her daughter in that.
But when that opening happens, when they're pulling into Mel's Drive-In into the parking lot, every time like you see an inside shot, it hasn't changed one bit. Like going into any one of them now, it is identical.
Great mid-century design on the one in the movie. It's so good looking.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And they keep coming back to it, which is cool. Like you feel like you know where the people are at all given times.
It's very much acts as a home base of the movie of like, let's all meet here and then go off on our adventures and we'll
They've reconvened multiple times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mel's doesn't do doorside service though anymore,
No,
do
you
they?
gotta
I don't.
go to a Sonic for that.
Yeah, okay.
No.
I've
Nope.
never done that. I've never experienced that before. Have you guys?
We got a Sonic while I was in high school, and the line was always so long that I would never go. But they would roll around on roller skates and do the whole thing. I don't know if there's any other
I grew up in a
restaurant chain
household
does
that was more militant about not eating in cars.
Oh.
Kind of kills the whole Sonic idea.
There was no place to do that in the city,
Yeah.
which is ironic considering that this started in San, or at least Mel's.
Have you eaten at a Mel's?
all the time?
Okay.
I
They
think
have
it's great for kids.
They have Milner's Coupe all over the one on Geary Street. Like the inside of it
yes.
is like it's the 32 Ford is just all over the walls.
Well, in pictures, production photos, whenever you search production on this movie, the black and white photos you see of George Lucas on set are plastered on the interior of Mel's drive-in to this day.
Well, and still the greatest thing about Mel's as a kid is your food comes in a car.
Yes.
In a car.
Correct.
Correct.
28 years old when he made this. Cam, you're still young, but man, that really hurts me.
I mean, I'm 28 and I ain't I'm not making a feature film.
What have you done?
When did Star Wars
through
come out,
100
Cam?
curation listings earlier today?
Apparently, the studio disliked it so much they said it was only fit for release on TV originally, which is fascinating. Part of it because of the cheap way it was shot, which is actually,
Interesting.
I think, a benefit to how it looks.
Completely.
But fascinating. Did you guys read about the drunken antics of Harrison Ford and company?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
That
so
holiday in some.
yes, dude. Oh, well, tell the story then, Zach, because I thought it was great.
I think you'll do a much more flowery description.
Okay. So Harrison Ford, and then the guy who's the head of the Pharaohs, the guy who kind of kidnaps Richard Dreyfuss, and the actor who played Milner driving the Deuce Coupe. The three of them were drunk all the time, and they got kicked out of their Holiday Inn, and they would have nightly competitions to climb up the Holiday Inn sign. Harrison Ford got kicked out of his room. I mean, actually, I'm like, man, I wish I was there.
And then they threw Dreyfuss in the pool and he gashed his head open, and they're supposed to do a bunch of close-up shots the next day.
That's right.
So just total fraternal antics the entire way through.
And fascinating to me that those are the kind of the three people playing badasses in the movie. So probably like a lot of productions, you hear this, they're like kind of getting into character a little bit.
Sure. And with that introduction at the drive-in is where you start to meet, like, one by one, the whole ensemble, if you will. When Richard Dreyfuss is brought on as Curt, correct me if I'm wrong, that is Mike Barron.
Oh my God. I've always thought Mike Barron looks like young
like
Dreyfuss.
Mike Barron,
Yeah.
talks like Mike Barron, and I'm just like, this is him.
He's also the character that I'm the most, I just like him. I want to hang out with him. I think Dreyfuss is amazing in the movie. He was my favorite part. And that's how I feel about Mike. I just love hanging out with Mike. It's always fun to be around Mike. So it's a good analog there. The way he handles getting kidnapped by the Pharaohs is great. That's fantastic.
Well, you know who else auditioned for that role and didn't get it, but then ended up in a George Lucas film? The Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill auditioned for the Dreyfuss role.
Yep.
Really?
hmm
Wow. Well, and I didn't know this because I wasn't a Happy Days guy, but Ron Howard's character in Happy Days is like apparently very similar to his character in this.
Well, the Happy Days is basically, I would imagine they greenlit that based off of this massive
Correct.
success.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a year later, right? He's basically playing the same role.
The, 50 years later internet legend is that this was a big reason why 50s nostalgia took off in the 70s. That is this movie, even though it's set in the 60s, the guys on the Rewatchables, one of my favorite podcasts, they have this theory that, everything, I mean, it's a broad theory in society, but after 20 years, nostalgia always comes back. And I remember thinking many years ago, I probably said this to you, Zach, well, 90s baggy pants are never going to come back because they were terrible, and they did.
Yeah, that is.
So
But now we're at like the 30-year mark of that.
in the internet era, it's a little bit
Yeah.
less, whatever, but there was certainly a huge 50s nostalgia wave in the 70s.
Well, and I feel like
Nokias and Motorola Razors are ripe for coming back.
well, it hits harder in certain. Like I feel like the '80s there wasn't a huge hearkening for the '60s. Like I think the '80s definitely embodied itself in the culture that came out of it, and it is interesting to see that in the '70s there was such a. And it's also interesting, it's set in 62. Like, he could have taken the music, the cars, a completely different direction, but I feel like he really was leaning into the 50s thing for being set kind of well into the 60s.
School us on the music a little bit, Cam, because it's such a big part of this.
Well, a big part of this is that a ton of the music from the movie is from the early to mid 50s, kind of getting into the later 50s with some of the more rock and roll stuff. But music was a huge part of this movie, just going off of the budget that we were talking about, $770,000, 70 to 100,000 is kind of the reported estimate that was just put towards licensing music for the movie, which was
enormous.
exorbitant at the time. So yeah, nearly 10% of the budget. And that kind of like changed the movie industry on a whole, as far as like hiring a dedicated music reference. I don't even know what that job would be called in a movie. Someone to select all of the scoring, compositions, and music for a movie. The person that did that in this was actually, and I love this, was George Lucas himself. When he was writing the script, had a 45 player sitting on the desk and would just kind of throw on songs as he was writing and either let the song influence the scene or try to take the scene that he's writing and find a song that really connects with it. And through that, you start to get this really natural character that the music plays, both being a bit of a narrator for what is happening throughout the movie, as well as emphasizing what is happening in each scene. And I love that it is, and Alex, you kind of mentioned this, but it's a diegetic score where
Hang on, I'm Googling diegetics.
I had only learned about
book.
I only learned about this term recently. It's fascinating. It means the
Is this
people
gonna help
hear
me
it.
lose weight?
It means the people, it's not just the people watching the movie hear it, but the people in the movie hear it too.
Playing naturally in the film.
well, and not only that, it also helps contextualize scenes where, like the scene where Curt is looking for Wolfman Jack. I forget the exact song that's playing. I think I have it here. Crying in the Chapel. That song, throughout that scene of him searching for Wolfman Jack, it starts off basically like you would hear it if you were listening to it on headphones, straight off of a recording press or whatever. And so it's very clean and crisp. And then it transitions to Curt in the car searching for Wolfman Jack. And it goes to more static, lo-fi, more AM sound.
Because he's hearing it on the radio,
Yeah,
right?
because it's coming through the radio. Transition to him getting out of the car, walking into the radio station, and it moves into a similar roomy sound where you can tell it's not coming through direct speakers, but it's much cleaner than the car was. And it just really creates this whole storyline within a scene. And it does that in so many, including having like the actual band at the sock hop.
Oh, dude, wait,
games.
I have a question for you on this. I thought that band kind of rips. Is that like you're a musician?
I
Is
mean,
that
Flash, Cadillac, and the
okay?
Continental
But like,
Kids.
it looks like they're really playing and like they're good and like the harmonizing is good. What did you think about that scene at the sock hop?
Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids were a fantastic band, and that was them. That was them playing on the stage. Who knows if they were actually playing live and having that recorded?
I think they were named in the opening credits.
I think so.
Yes.
I would imagine.
We have to acknowledge this movie is a prime example of high school kids that are all in their 30s.
Oh my God, totally.
Everybody I'm watching, I'm like, they look older than me.
I know. People also look different in the 70s.
It's a
than they did now.
combination.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm so curious. Have any of you seen more American Graffiti? The sequel?
No,
I read about it though. I'm not too.
I'm probably not.
Yikes.
I actually
That
got.
was a no.
I think I told you this, guys. I got offered a car that was in that movie, a dragster that's in that movie, which I'm kind of curious to see it, but it's supposed to be terrible. Yes.
Ooh, Rotten Tomatoes 20%.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I'll stop there. Okay, so other amazing music observations, Cameron. I mean, deep on that. A bunch of stuff I've never picked up on. And you're totally right that the majority of the music is 50s, but has Green Onions ever slapped harder than when they're pulling up to the
I mean, Green Onion slaps hard every time.
Do you know what year that came out?
Is that 64?
No, it's 62. The
Okay.
year the movie set.
Oh,
so
wow.
it would have been the sick track to put on when you're cruising around, and that's the setup for the drags.
It's so good.
So good.
And I'm not a music file at all. However, I noticed while watching this film that there's one very notable 60s band that's never a part of it. And I had to sort of look it up and realize, oh, it's because they didn't,
Yeah.
the first album is until a year later.
Uh-huh.
There's no Beatles.
Oh yeah, right.
Like a huge,
this is
it's
pre-Beatles.
almost like important that this takes place in 62. Otherwise, I would imagine it'd be completely different 1 year later.
No Elvis either because they wouldn't let it in. And like you'd have to tell me, Cam, but apparently Elvis would have definitely been playing at some point somewhere.
Oh, 100%. And I don't think it wasn't that they wouldn't let it in. Yeah, the studio just refused to pay what
what he would have.
the publishing costs for his music. But yeah, Beatles landed in the US in 64, I think. So correct there. And that if it was 64, 65, for sure, all of the stuff on the radio would have been Beatles into Stones, which is why I'm curious what timeline the sequel is set in and what kind of music is used in that movie.
Well,
I'm curious.
here's a question.
I think we need to just forget the sequel.
Totally pretend it didn't
wasn't
happen.
even directed by Luke.
Oh, really?
But some of the people came back. The guy who plays Johnny Milner is back.
Guys that most needed work came back.
Totally.
No, Ron Howard's still in it, I think.
The reason I think this feels like the 50s still is like, in history circles, they'll sometimes talk about a long decade or a short decade. And the early 60s are part of the long 50s, I think, right? And
Yeah.
the Beatles is actually maybe when the 60s start. So you'd actually have a different feel in the movie if it was set
Great
even
call.
just 2 or 3 years later.
Well, I was going to say Beatles aren't really cruising culture.
Right.
It would be a totally different
The
film
haircuts would be
then.
different. Everything would look different, right?
It's also like so many of the hits from back in the day they were all just about teenage stuff. And so it kind of makes sense that you could probably throw down just about any top 40 hit from, 55 through 60, and it would probably work in some sort of scene within this movie. I would love to hear your guys' take on what role do you think Wolfman Jack played in the movie? Do you think he was a narrator? Do you think he was kind of just adding to the storylines of each character?
I love that part of it. And from what I understand, he had like a 4-hour cut of this movie, and it didn't really make sense. It's vignettes. Like I grew up on Star Wars. I love Star Wars. George Lucas is not my favorite filmmaker. I know why he's revered. ILM is so important. Star Wars, the IP around Indiana Jones, like it's some of my favorite stuff. It was just a movie of vignettes. And I can't remember where I read this. It was one of the editors. I mean, he wanted to edit it himself, and he did keep cutting it down, but the story made less and less sense the more of it he took out. I mean, it's just like Star Wars. He wrote 9 movies worth of stuff and made 1 movie out of it, right? I believe the Wolfman Jack stuff, which I think was encouraged. I mean, he loved Wolfman Jack, as you probably read, right? When he was a kid. It ties everything together. It's the way you tie all the various little vignette stories together. There's this one constant announcer who everyone's listening to, right?
Yeah. And I also loved, I found in some research that all of the calls that happened, like the Wolfman Jack call-in thing, were all real calls back in the day that they just, pulled from their archives of various, I think it was like 300 plus hours of calls that they listened to, and just pulled from the best ones that they thought were the most interesting.
Well, it's cool. There's a lot of reasons why this movie would never work in a more modern society, but Wolfman Jack is one of the main reasons, because he's the connective tissue. And now there's not this one media outlet that everybody kind of gravitates towards. People all have these different niches. So it looks pretty different. Plus, I mean, texting and Tinder would totally kill hollering at people.
Totally.
About your
the monoculture is dead. Cam didn't even grow up with it. You're about the end of monoculture. Beck and I grew up when it was still, everyone saw Titanic or everyone knew whatever, but that is long gone.
There's too much stuff now.
And it's niche. Everyone can find their people.
We need to get into the cars.
Okay, we do.
But I do want to just say one thing that we didn't acknowledge, that George Lucas modeled the characters of Curt, Steve, and Terry after himself of different points in his life. And all 3 of them are super relatable for different reasons, at least for us, which I think grew up with low self-esteem. Good thing Howard's not here. But especially Toad, when he gets the Impala, it's like life-changing.
Yes.
All of a sudden, he's sitting up straight. He's making eye contact.
He's calling out to girls.
Yes, that's right.
It's unreal. That's all it took. And that's probably all it would have took for us in high school, too.
How many girls have been excited about the upholstery in your car ever?
The Honda Prelude.
Is that a real thing that has ever happened? Beck did a bunch of car research, and I want to dive into it. I will just say I did have a lot of those 50s jams in my head, like for a while. Like they got stuck in my head.
Oh, yeah, and I'll do that.
Zach, we should talk first about Lucas's car background, which I didn't know about till I did the research on this.
Sick. I mean, he's an interesting guy, whether you love his films or not. He still seems like a good person, which I really appreciate. And I think he's quoted, I'm sure you read this article too, that he's like, I'm not a car collector. I'm pretty frugal with my car purchases. He buys what he likes. We got to talk about his Auto Bianchi, because that gets us to, I think, the modern cars he owned, or cars in his modern life, were a Ferrari Dino, which he said he loved. He had a Ferrari 360, which I love.
Which I was so excited to talk to you about that.
Yeah. And then
that was from an 04 article. So that would have been a brand new Modena at the time.
Yeah. 67 Camaro and 2 Tuckers.
Which it has to be because of his Francis Ford Coppola friendship, right?
Well, he sold one in 2024. I don't know if he still owns the other.
But they're buds. Coppola made the Tucker movie, which we'll do eventually.
The Tucker is still in the Coppola winery clubhouse.
Right.
Oh, man. Maybe not for much longer after his last movie.
Megalopolis. You mentioned that Toad is him when he's a freshman and he's a nerd. It makes perfect sense. The Curt character is him as like a USC film student, which is like how I always picture young Lucas, with the beard and the plaid shirt tucked in, in Tunisia making Star Wars. That's Dreyfuss.
And John's Community College ripping around the valley.
100%. And I didn't know till I did the research on this that he was like a hot rodder. And did you go into the Shelby stuff, Zach? Okay, great. Okay, good.
Up on this.
Do you want to talk Auto Bianchi first or what? Because there's so much good stuff. Cam, Beck, did you read about all this stuff?
No, I did not know he was.
I mean, this is a formative moment in Lucas's life, which is also funny to me because it coincides at a time where I was a little older, but I got in that gnarly motorcycle accident.
Totally.
He was driving home. His car growing up in high school was an Auto Bianchi, and you can find photos of it.
It's super modified. Like,
He's got a chopped windshield. I want to know what's up with those shields on the side.
yeah, I was trying to figure out, Zach, it must be a cab with the windshield chopped, but it could be a sedan. These are Fiat 500s, as you know, Auto Bianchis are Fiat 500 based, but his was all hotted up, and there were definitely a lot of speed parts.
Check that shot. You can still see the Modesto license plate frame on the
So
front.
Wow, young stormtrooper.
Ha, good call.
You know, there's a cut down Lola T70 and TX.
There's a pair of them. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
THX 1138.
So that was his car, and he hopped it up when he put a short ratio 4-speed in it so he could actually compete at the drags with this little thing. And then, as the story goes, his friend also an Impala, I think.
It was an Impala.
Was coming up behind
58.
him.
I think it was a 58 Impala, same as in the movie.
Yeah, I think on like a 2-lane road or something, trying to catch up to him, and Lucas didn't see him, flipped on his blinker, hung a left, and the Impala slammed into him. He rolled a bunch of times,
It's a
tossed from the car.
Brutal photo.
No heartbeat, 2 collapsed lungs. Didn't think he was going to make it, but came out of it. And that's basically how we got the George Lucas we all know, because he had this near-death experience and said, man, life's fleeting. I'm going to make something of myself.
It's amazing stuff. Never knew any of this. Wanted to be a hot rodder, wanted to be a racer, was buddies. I think around the same time, he worked in a shop, which is where he was hopping up the Auto Bianchi, made friends with Alan Grant, who is the famous yellow Shelby. He was a works Shelby driver when he was 21, and he had an 18-year-old mechanic that he took all the way to, I think, to Sebring, Zach? That was George Lucas.
Hold up right now. Chassis number.
And that's allegedly a
2.28.
George Lucas designed livery. We'll put pictures of all this in the pod thing, and painted by George Lucas. That Shelby, it's this yellow.
Wow.
You've probably seen this car. It's a famous, that's the Alan Grant Cobra. I never knew any of that stuff, Zach. Wasn't that so cool?
Oh, yeah.
That's rad.
I mean, I always liked Lucas, and he loves machinery, obviously. We have to have Airplane Corner. I mean, that flying wing that he invented, maybe that was Spielberg. Spielberg likes airplanes, too, in the first Indiana Jones.
Oh, sure. Mhm.
Where he fights the big bald guy and punches him into the propeller. Like, he's always got great vehicles in all of his stuff. Anyway, I thought that background was amazing. And I believe, Beck, segue to you, that's why the Milner Coupe is yellow.
So, a few special cars in this movie. They're honestly probably the
Let's
best
start with what's the
example.
most iconic? What's the one that you think of? Is it the Deuce?
I think it's the Deuce
I
Coupe.
think it's the dude.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
clearly it's shot yellow, partly just because it pops out in night photography so well. That was, I believe, actually a chopped car they found already, and then did some further customization.
But
just
full
to
fender,
it.
a red full fendered car.
Full fender, but obviously they did the cycle fenders for the film itself. Also, crucially, a channeled front grille, which I don't know much about hot rodding culture, but when researching about this, I started looking up like copies of it, and some of them started to look kind of odd. And it's supposedly because the channeling is like one of the hardest things to
Yes.
do, and so a lot of people don't do it.
Why is
And-
that, Alex?
So the Deuce grill is very famous. People even put them on Model A's. We have a Model A coupe that I want very badly right now, and has a Deuce grill, and it looks so much better than the standard old brass radiator, because it's got when people talk about the grill, it's actually the grill shell. The radiator is behind it. So it's the beautiful Deuce grill is the shell around the actual radiator itself. Whereas if you go back into the 20s, the radiator is all one piece. Like the grill is just the radiator, right? But this is a shell around it. Model A's and 32s are really easy to chop because they're vertical. Like if you look at the windows, the roof line is very easy to chop because you can just take some section out of the middle and drop the top
The
down.
A, B, C cut pillars
Right.
are all very vertical.
Vertical.
Yeah.
What's really hard is chopping slopey cars. So the Pharaohs, we'll get to it eventually. They're 51 Merc. Those are called lead sleds. And the reason that's so hard is because you have to do all kinds of crazy work to deal with the sloped pillars. And then you put lead over everything to smooth it out. That's where the name of those comes from. But much easier to chop a Model A or a Deuce because it's vertical.
For the body, yes, but for the front grille, it's still rather difficult. But apparently, that's where people skip out when they're making the replicas of these, and thus
I bet you can buy a fiberglass chopped grill
possibly
now. Yeah.
So while like
You can buy a whole fiberglass body too.
You sure
Come on,
can.
Alex.
the profile of what the car looks like in the film, very aggressive, small front end, big rear end. But when you look online, people who've not done that on the
Yeah.
front, it looks kind of goofy.
Well, the other problem is, and this is true of the Model A on the site right now, you'll notice it doesn't have a hood top. The Milner Coupe, and a lot of them don't. That you couldn't actually put a hood top across the top. The grill is too high. The hood wouldn't match the cowl line. And it's a thing people complain about. When it doesn't look aesthetically correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually like hot rods with a hood and hood sides. I don't
too.
need an exposed
We
engine.
had that white 32 recently on the side of thing was.
But built in California, meant to be, purely for this film, still exists to this day. Supposedly, from what it sounds like, it's owned here in San Francisco by a collector, which was kind of wild to see that that's still sticking around. But yes, so obviously the Milner Deuce Coupe is the primary hero car. Probably I'd say the number 2 car would be Bob Falfa's 150. That one there were...
Wow, that's number 2. I would put the Impala at number 2.
I would kind of put the
Really?
Impala
Interesting.
number 2 as well.
Oh, I sort of thought of
The 55. I tried to do a little research on this, and some people think the T-Bird is like the notable car from the movie, the
That's another
Fantasy
big one,
Girls
for sure.
T-Bird. Yeah.
But Bob Falfa's car, there were 3 of them. There was a main hero car for most of the shots. There was the stunt car. Then there was the car that they burned at the end. For the hero car, 427, supposedly an L88 motor put into it with a 4-speed so he could actually shift it while driving.
4-speed in the Deuce also.
Interesting.
T10.
Yep. But then the stunt car...
What's the motor in the
327 Corvette, small block. With 4... I didn't notice it when watching it with 4 Rochesters on it. Apparently, it does have like the trumpets like stick outward, so it must be in a square setup. When he goes and takes the plugs out at the end when he's going to race, such a sick scene.
Well, another interesting thing is, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure 327s didn't come out until 1962.
So most of the engines actually weren't available, which is why, for example, in Bob Falfa's car, there's never a hood open shot. The 427 motor that was in it wouldn't have been available then. And then the 454, that's in the actual stunt car. Again, we don't want to see it. But that stunt car has to be doing a lot of drags multiple times, multiple shots. They need it to be very robust and also be very reliable in the sense of where it's going to hit its marks every time. So that was an automatic transmission for that one. And then for the car that they flip, they were struggling to get it to flip. And so it's actually, if you watch it closely, it's sort of like in most car flip scenes in movies now, like all of a sudden, like the front left corner for no reason just starts to lift. And so they do, obviously have to destroy that one. And that car is the one that struggles more in its history. It's a lot of unknown cars got destroyed. People say they've got one because it was actually, I believe, a Universal Studios like prop car that was used in previous films beforehand. They basically
that's
pulled
the
it out.
55?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
They pulled it out of their sort of inventory of already built vehicles that were reliable for it. And they sort of padded it with the hero shot car and then the one that they crashed. But yeah, I would agree. The 58 Impala stands out so much.
Hold on. Before we talk about that, I want to hear from you. None of you are really hot rod guys. After watching this, because I love these already, and I'm like, God, I need to redouble my efforts to get a Deuce Coupe. And I specifically want a Coupe, not a Roadster. The Roadster is arguably more the icon as a hot rod. Where do you guys land after watching this on hot rods, like pure hot rods, like 32s, and also on Tri-5s?
Well, Cameron's already got the tats for one.
I've always had a bit of affinity for hot rods of this era, if I'm being honest. Like a Deuce Coupe has been up there for me as like, I just love the looks of those cars. And I also just love the culture behind, modifying your stuff, running what you got. I think it's all really cool.
I have a strong appreciation for them. I would be down if the opportunity to borrow yours someday and just cruise around for a day. I think that would be the experience I'd like to have, but it's not something I can really see myself in.
You can see from the way Milner's sitting in it, it's like a pretty horrendous experience to be in
I
one of
would
these.
do a Highboy Roadster. We've had a few that I've really liked. This black car really resonates with me.
Oh, totally. And that's the clone of the famous Doane Spencer V winch, which Bruce Meyer owns, right? That's maybe the most famous hot rod, the black 32 Roadster with the V windshield.
Lot number 198240.
Classic.
Well, and honestly, maybe it's just me wanting to be Harrison Ford, but I also was a little intrigued by having a little 2-door 150.
No, give me a Millennium Falcon over that car any day.
Fair enough.
Man, I looked at my watch list the other day and it's like all Tri-5s and hot rods. That's what I'm interested in right now.
That line, I think it's Harrison Ford who gives it, where someone asks, "What you got in there, kid?" And he says, "More than you can handle." Felt so Fast and Furious of more than you can afford, pal. Like I instantly got that sense from that scene.
Love that there's a roll bar in the 55, which seemed kind of crazy. This is like an era of like people not
Came in to help at the end.
Totally. And also Zach, that crash in the Auto Bianchi that Lucas had in real life, he had a seatbelt on, and that would have been 61 or something like that. So kind of questionable whether you'd even have one. And he had a seatbelt on, and he was, like Zach said, he was thrown out of the car eventually, but it held him in for some number of rotations.
It had to have been a lap belt.
When the Tri-5 flips, I just can't not see the 59 Bel Air versus 2009 Impala IHS crash test. Have you guys all seen that?
No.
Oh, I mean, the 59 Impala just disintegrates.
Is that where the car just
There's nothing left of it.
Yeah.
And there's all these conspiracy guys in the comments being like, oh, they took metal out of that car.
Nice.
But no, I'm shocked at how well that thing crashed when they rolled it. So the roll bar's got to be a big part of that.
Maybe a good segue into the 58 Impalas. I think there's a misperception amongst particularly younger car people that these big old American cars are super heavy, but they're actually not. Like modern cars are heavier, and part of that is because they have so much better crumple zones.
It's the design of the structure for sure.
I mean, the 58 Impala was not light.
No, it's not light, but it's not. I've heard people say things like, oh, cars were so big and heavy and boat-like back then. And like, actually, I bet those two cars that you just showed us crashing, they probably were about the same curb weight. They're probably both like 4,000 pounds.
It's in there. I don't know what the 09 Malibu is.
Not light.
58 Impala between 3,450 and 3,650.
Yeah.
So less than a current M3.
Or an M2. Isn't it like a 2 Series, like a 3,800 pound car?
Yeah. BMW is not a fair example, though.
Beck, I don't know if you saw this in your research, but apparently the Chevy 150 and the Deuce Coupe both sold to the same person after the movie.
It did. One guy bought them both, Steve Fitch. And actually, the 150 that was eventually found and saved, the real hero car, is currently being restored by Level 1 Restoration in Colorado. They're doing YouTube videos about the process as well, so look them up. But that car has essentially survived, and then also the Deuce Coupe is still to this day here in the city.
And then did you, in your research, the license plate on the
Well,
Deuce
hold
Coupe?
on. Should we get into Robert Duvall Corner?
Oh, yes.
Every
every
film
episode, you got to do a
Needs,
Robert
every
Duvall.
episode needs Robert Duvall Corner. We'll have a little jingle.
He was
Chris,
in THX, right?
Chris, put in a little jingle for Robert Duvall Corner right now.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
All right, we're back. And Robert Duvall, obviously, not only is in THX 1138, which is the license plate THX 138, because he couldn't have a 7-digit license plate back then. But that's his character's name. He's the title character in the science fiction film that was George Lucas's college film project at first, and then was then redone partially and re-released as a feature film prior to American Graffiti. But Robert Duvall was in that film.
Awesome.
Yep.
We never want to go an episode without talking about. Maybe we have to do Got in 60 Seconds next. The remake.
Or I was thinking this is a perfect example of a 1 degree of separation Robert Duvall film, and we can do a rating for each movie.
How many degrees
How
is
many degrees of
removed
separation
from
it takes
totally.
to get to Robert Duvall in every film.
And then I also thought it was cool, the lead sled. Do you see who purchased it?
No, the
on
Mercury?
that? Yeah.
No.
51 Merc, and that had already been modified. Beck, what's the history on that car?
Yeah, this is the Pharaoh's car, the gang car. I believe Van Halen bought it.
Oh, that's
from
right.
the
I
that's what I was-
studio.
yeah.
So it got parked. There's a if you
More
ever did-
music, Cam.
Yeah.
If you ever did like the Universal Studios backlot tour, like in the tram that drags you all around, you would eventually go through the parking lot where they had a bunch of film cars sitting there. As a kid, I saw one of the original Time Machine DeLoreans there, and I was like shocked that it was there. Eventually, that one then got restored. Now it's in the Peterson. But supposedly that's where the Mercury Coupe was, and eventually Van Halen bought it. And then apparently it went to Brian Setzer.
Yeah, which is the perfect musician that should be owning that car.
Do you know, does he have it to this day or not? I don't know.
No, so it went to Brian Setzer, Stray Cats, Brian Setzer Orchestra, but then he sold it to a young car collector in New York, and then that collector died by suicide. And then the last known report was it was rusting in a junkyard because the father of that collector would not sell it.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
It has really interesting hubcaps. I presume that's the real car they're filming in the back seat of, where there's all the fuzzy. Yeah. I love that.
Who do we think here would be the most likely to actually end up joining the Pharaohs?
Oh, good question.
Not me, but
It's not you. It's probably not me. Cam, would you be in a car gang?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I feel
probably.
like it's
Do I get to wear the cool jacket?
You get the cool jacket.
Got it,
Yeah.
man.
But as long as you do the initiative.
Tabitha is actually the most likely to join the car gang.
She's most likely to sell Cutco knives in between high school and college. That's your answer. Tabitha it is.
So the other biggies are the
Other big
Impala.
cars would be
and the
Suzanne Summers in the Thunderbird, which it was such a weird. I had no idea. My wife actually pointed that out while we were watching it. I had no idea it was her. But the Thunderbird
Is 56 T-Bird your guys? That's my favorite year of T-Bird. What
Yeah,
about you guys?
that's
56?
first
Porthole?
57 guy.
57 guy.
That
Interesting.
Continental kit in the back.
Oh,
You're pro Continental kit?
How could you not be?
Oh my God, this is the breakout moment of the pod.
Yeah.
Oh no, 2 thumbs down
So
on Continental
obvious.
kit.
Continental with a F-code supercharger in there?
Oh well,
Come
F-code
on,
is strong.
man.
F-code is strong.
But
Yeah,
yes,
go
50
full Thunderbird. There's another movie reference in there that I can't say exactly line for line, but that's why the 57 is like the epitome of the T-Bird for me.
I will say the final shot of the T-Bird rolling on the road as Curt's looking out of the airplane window. Maybe it's some unresolved relationship trauma, but I was like, damn, that kind of hit.
Yeah, totally.
Oh.
Totally.
We got to find you a payphone after work today.
But yes, the 56 Thunderbird, the 58 Impala, and then lastly the 58 Edsel.
Oh, right. Great
Lastly,
Edsel.
come on, the 2CV and the Vespa.
Yeah.
Oh, the 2CV.
Yes, 2CV.
is true.
Vespa.
The police car.
Police car, yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Getting the rear end yanked out.
Yeah.
Supposedly the 2CV was actually a much later 60s. Like this specific one that was in it was a local car. They had a guy come bring it out. It was like a 67, but because of the 2CV, it doesn't really matter. It could have easily been from the late 40s.
Yeah, totally.
Few to no European or Japanese cars.
A couple 356s. Do you spot the 356s?
Man, I
there's a
missed
couple. There's one scene where you
There's a
see one,
Beetle.
and there's another scene where you see two. Oh, yeah. People hanging out in the back seat of a Beetle, which is problematic.
There's a 356 of some sort in the shot of them at the airport. You can't really tell what it is. You just see the back end of it. But yeah, not a lot of European representation.
Is there a single Japanese car that you guys spotted?
I didn't see a single one.
Even in 73, when they made it, that would have been rare. But in 62, was there any Japanese car even sold in the U.S. in 62? I don't think there was.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
S600 is one of the first Japanese cars sold here, and that's like 65, maybe.
When were the Datsun dealers with those early squarish body Datsuns?
Mid to late 60s, something. 62 would have been, I mean, we're all struggling here. Somebody can just Google first Japanese car sold in the US, but it would have been around this time or even a few years later.
Well, I also love that all of the extra cars in the background, they basically just sent out like advertisements to NorCal car clubs, just being like, hey, bring your car out. Maybe got paid like $20 to $25 a night for it. But I would love to be hanging on the set for those, hanging with those people, because I'm sure that was quite a scene. But just the casting of the background cars, like it really felt like you were living in that time period.
And part of that monoculture, I feel like that would be so much more successful then than it would be now. To try and get like 300 cars and teenagers to show up and like hang out during the night in the background just seems like impossible.
What? That's literally what they did in the Fast and the Furious for the
Right, but now,
Drag Wars.
but that's still within the window
Yeah,
of
we
like
can
that
do it.
time.
Come on, what are BAT alumni events?
I mean,
Not
time
with
is such an
teenagers.
interesting thing. This is set.
I'm messing with you, Ben.
This is set 17 years after the end of World War II, and it was only made 28 years after the end of World War II.
Right.
And Fast and Furious was made like 28 years ago from today. So
Whoa.
like time is a crazy thing.
And this movie came out
Time is a
like,
flat circle.
months before the oil crisis.
Oh,
This movie came out, right? So like it's celebrating something that's just about to.
They said
kind
that
of
killed cruising culture to a large
Sure.
extent.
This movie did come out like months before the oil embargo in 73 that set gas prices off. So while it maybe reinvigorated a bit of car culture, I can't say financially it was too successful.
When is the peak of American car culture? I actually think it's when this movie's set. Like, when's the time when the average American or even American car people are the most into cars?
Well, peak implies that it's downhill from there, right?
Yeah.
No, I think there's multiple peaks. I think there's post-World War II enthusiasm, economy booming, and that's late 50s up until the early 70s, right? And then you go into a valley until maybe around the late 80s, which climbs up into the mid 2000s. I think that wave gets ridden pretty hard. And then there's financial crash, which derails everything. And then again from 2011, 2012 to maybe even today, I think is kind of another peak resurgence.
I think if we're talking peak American car culture, meaning not just Americans, but American cars, then definitely there's an argument for that being around that time, early 60s, because while all the muscle cars really start to come out 64, 65, all the way through into early 70s, that is actually American company sort of leveraging
Corporate culture, yes.
corporate culture,
Yes.
leveraging what is prior to that been the boom of the youth culture in building their own hot rods and street racing and cruising around. And then really it's later that the corporations sort of catch up to that, cash out a bunch of money, and then of course big giant oil crisis. And then yes, that does crush that part of it. And then all those subsequent booms in car culture are not, I'd argue, centered around American cars or even necessarily just American tastes. it becomes so much more fluid and so much more dynamic of all the options and what you do. And so, yes, there's heights and valleys and there's obviously a malaise era, there's throwback eras, all these things. But as far as American car culture as literally as that term, I feel like that might be right.
That's a good one. Yeah, resurgence in the 90s could also be the only other kind of peak of American car.
I mean, I felt it when I was a kid, but it was very much, again, like all my friends were at least semi into cars because everyone wanted the independence that a car gives you, right? Like a 16-year-old wants to get the hell out of the house. And all the people portrayed in this movie are to some extent into cars because they have to be, because they want to get out and cruise. You got to have a car.
I forgot who it was this weekend, but they're asking me about growing up. And they're like, oh, well, what would you do before you had a car? And I was like, oh, you just sit at home and do nothing. That's what your life is till you're 16, 17. You get license and keys growing up in these areas.
Did you have that, Cam, when you were 16? A desire to get out of the house and buddies who wanted to get out of the house? I mean, by the time you got your license, you couldn't even take other kids in your car, right?
No, you could not.
Legally, technically.
Legally.
Yeah.
How are you going to join the Pharaohs?
Well, exactly. Well, my first car was a Honda Pilot that I could fit 8 people in. So I was often breaking the law.
Statute of limitations is over, buddy.
Yeah. And so kind of similar to what Beck was saying earlier, having multiple seats indoors and all that, it was honestly a benefit. And I was the car that drove everyone around. But for sure, I was itching the second I turned 16 to get my license and to be able to just take myself places, mostly just like friends' houses and things. But yeah, for sure had that itch.
Is your son that's soon to be 16, does he have that as well?
He's not super interested in cars, but he's itching to be independent, I can tell. And so probably a lot of dads have done this. I'm forcing it down his throat a little bit. He's got to learn how to drive a stick, then he can have my Civic, right? And so like it almost forces a little bit of car culture on him and having to learn a little bit of something about how to operate a car that's a little more complicated than your standard car.
And better than what I'm seeing, which is the dirt bikes that are like taken over.
They're
I've seen
so fast.
It's like gangs of under 16, like we're talking like 13 to 15-year-olds who they can't either own a car because they can't afford it or they can't drive it, whatever it is. The dirt bikes just like roaming around is their opportunity for independence, though, right? They can fly off and go to wherever they want and go find their neighborhoods and go find wherever they want to hang out. And I was desperate to get out. I needed to get in a car and be gone, and I was gone any night that I could be out of the house.
Sure. Zach wanted to be the fastest guy in the valley. That's my favorite thing that I've been thinking
You're
about.
still the most bitchin' ride in the valley.
One of the scenes that really got me on the last time I rewatched it is when they're walking through the junkyard and he's talking about all the people who got killed trying to be the fastest guy in the valley. I think he mentions a vet in there and some other things, and really fascinating. I love that scene.
That scene, the liquor store scene, is peak for me.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
I also lost my wife. Her name wasn't Heidi, though.
And what's the booze he's asking for? It's like old
Harper's or something.
I love it.
Yeah.
Old Harper's. I think that's right.
Yeah.
The gunfire, that feels like something that would happen in the 50s, just leaning out.
That's valley culture, Zach.
Sure.
That whole scene also reinforced a connection to another film, Superbad. Superbad is a coming of age.
Oh,
movie
I wonder if
where
that
the
was
3
inspired, but
boys-
totally.
There's characters. I mean, McLovin is
Oh, yeah.
totally Toad,
Yes. 100%.
right? Completely is. And then the 2 boys, they have different sort of futures ahead of them, and they're all just trying to go hang out for the night, just trying to find a party to go to. And then there's a whole scene where McLovin is trying to buy booze at a liquor store, and that's what Toad's trying to do.
He also ends
Feels
up with the
just like
hot
it.
lady, just
Yeah,
like
ends up with the hot lady.
Dude, it must be an inspiration. I never had thought about that
Yeah,
before.
same.
Or teenage boys are always just trying to buy booze.
It's just a common throughput.
If they remade the movie set more along the lines of when we grew up, what would you want to see the hero and villain cars be? Harrison Ford, villain car.
Great question.
The 32 Ford hero car.
We're talking like 90s, late 90s, early 2000s.
Yes, exactly. I hope everyone has different answers too.
Man, that's such
Okay,
a good question.
I know my villain car, 100%. Be a Ford Fox Body 5-liter.
Okay,
That was
let's start villain car. You'd
Okay.
be Fox body.
that was just sort of like
That's really good.
People in the parking lot, the dudes who had some money from working at Good Guys.
I mean, honestly, if it was true to my high school experience, it would be a dude in a lifted Tahoe with like 38-inch wheels and dual stage MagnaFlow mufflers, huge 15-inch subwoofers, and black tint. Like that's what he would drive.
That's great. It's a little bit earlier than the era, but
You can go later for your gen if you want.
no, I'm gonna
Yeah,
go.
it's-
I'm
you just-
gonna go a little earlier, like just a blacked out Buick Regal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would put Harrison Ford in an Eclipse GSX
Oh,
because people would tune those up to run 10s in period. They were like unstoppable. And that's his mission, just to find some other guy that he heard has a fast car to prove his car is faster.
The guy I know who had the most tuned kind of street racery car in San Luis Obispo had a GST Eclipse that like ran like, it wasn't even that fast, like 12s, maybe low 12s, something like that.
Yeah,
huge turbo and all that.
Definitely would see that 19th Avenue cruising around for sure.
Okay, hero car.
An Alfa Romeo Milano, of course.
Beck does not have.
I'm trying. So it's helpful that you put some context around it. Like, what would you have if you're trying to be the fastest guy in the valley, like in the late 90s, early 2000s? The fastest cars at my high school, these wouldn't be my choices, but the fastest cars at my high school were two guys had 3000 GT VR4s with tunes on them. And then one guy had, not the very original, but the first SVT Mustang Cobra that had the twin cam motor and independent rear suspension, but not a supercharger. It was like a 320 horsepower twin cam V8. That's maybe like an 01 SVT Cobra. Those were the fastest cars at my high school.
That's what I was going to say. It would have been perfect. An SVT Cobra, maybe a Terminator, but also part of his character is he has an older car that he's built up and makes it aspirational, which is why a Fox body Cobra would also be pretty prime.
Like the kids who had to save their paper money and buy their own cars at my high school, they all had Fox bodies with power pulleys and loud exhausts and like
it would have a Cobra bumper cover, but definitely is not a.
Well, all those guys had GTs, which now everyone knows. Oh, you got to get an LX notch. That's the lightest one. But all of these guys had GTs because they wanted to look cool.
Sure.
Your answer, Cameron?
Fox body was going to be my hero car answer.
Man, that's boring. What else could it be? I'm trying to think of European or Japanese stuff.
Well, I do.
None of that is really fast in a straight line,
I saw
though.
a lot of Pontiac Trans Ams with, remember the big intake on the Firebird hood?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That would have been definitely.
Yes. My senior year, a kid bought it like an 02 Camaro SS with a 6-speed. And I remember being horrified by how fast that car was in the backseat. It's probably not that fast now, but they were 350 horsepower?
Well,
not that heavy.
The plot of the movie, the hero car has to be an American car, in my opinion, even if you remade it. Otherwise, you could say Supra, boosted GSR Integras.
FD-RX-7.
Yeah, FDs. There's no shortage of pretty fast cars.
I mean, it's fast and furious.
Yeah, now we're just getting into Tokyo Drift.
So it's like Mustang or Camaro, basically, is where you got to go.
Could have been a Corvette. I'm cluing in on what guys were hot rodding around our era that were American cars.
The hot rodders of our era were like lowered Civics and stuff. Like those were the guys modifying their cars the most, but they were slow, and a lot of those guys would buy
the DSM guys. Insane. I mean, even now putting up, I think you can tune them to run 9s and 8s if you really want to go for it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Actually, I ran into a guy, a gas station in the Skyline. Everybody wants to be your friend in that car. And he was chatting with me. And then he was like, yeah, I actually have an Integra GSR that I built into a drag car. It's running 1100 horsepower through a... And I was like, is it a K series? Because I know people do crazy K builds. And he's like, no, it's built on a B series.
And it's front wheel drive still.
Yeah. He trailers it up to Sonoma drag nights.
There were guys who would have, maybe, I don't know if this is a thing anymore, but the wheelie bar, and because like you don't need a wheelie bar, but the wheelie bar would lift the back of the car up so that you got more weight on the front
That's
tires.
Hilarious. Oh,
yeah, crazy. I mean, I remember when the EM1 Civic SIs were brand new and guys were stoked out there on the drag strip running like 17 5s in those. You know what I mean? It's like how fast those cars could go. But I had the 912E and that turbo coupe and all that stuff was slow, right? And you were probably not, unlike because Milner's supposed to be the fastest guy in the valley and the 55 is there to challenge it. But most people were like George Lucas. He had his hot rodded Auto Bianchi, and that's what I was trying. I was trying to make the 912 fast, dude, with like its stock injected 2-liter, because even like 5 extra horsepower really means something to you when you're 16 years old, and you are just pulling up at a stoplight and trying to race whatever random person comes up next to you.
That's still when you have that kid mentality. You change your oil and your filter and you're like, yeah, it's probably like another 5 to 10 horsepower.
K&N air filter. Everyone thinking they're getting horsepower out of their K&N cones.
I'm an AEM generation kid.
That's a great question, Zach. What else you got? I wish I had a better answer for that one.
That's the big one. We'll think on it.
Where do you guys land? Where is it in the car canon movie? Kind of one of my hot takes was like, is this better than Star Wars? I can't go there, but I think it's actually, at this point in my life and for nostalgia, I like it about as much as I like the original Star Wars.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's like a good parallel for this.
Sure.
Back to your vignette comments. That's what I see. Hard to compare Star Wars.
Less accurate car choices in that. What's his name in an MG instead of a Jaguar? Roman Polanski. Yeah, that's tough.
I think this movie, while very much a car movie to folks like us, is also a movie that you could completely enjoy and not focus on the cars at all.
Totally. Because it's a movie about kids too, about maturing teenagers.
Yeah. And so in that sense, I don't think I would rank it extremely high in the car canon, but just a great movie in general.
I think there's so many elements that make it a great movie that you don't have to be a car fan to enjoy. In fact, I remember near the end of the film when Curt is in the phone booth and he's talking to Suzanne Summers on the phone. And he says the line that right up until the moment he's about to say it, I realize, oh my God, I've seen this clip 100 times. It's been in montages about like famous lines that have come from films of, you're the most beautiful thing I've seen and I don't know anything about you. And that just hit me really hard thinking like, holy cow, this isn't a car movie necessarily as it is like an American culture film and thus as part of like film history.
Yes.
And that really stood out to me because up until that point, I was really thinking mostly just about, this is a movie about culture and it's a coming of age film. And then realizing, oh no, this is the start of so many people's careers. It is George Lucas starting what is going to be the biggest, transcendence of his life at this point, going pretty much nowhere but up after this, especially at least for the 70s and the early 80s. This movie doesn't have to be a car movie. It can really be a lot of things.
Well, now I want to know, Cameron and Beck, because you guys just saw it for the first time, what did you think of the ending with the postscript of the four main characters?
I feel like he could have dropped that entirely.
Interesting.
Oh, I loved it.
Oh no.
The dying and
It also doesn't
I love
play
that.
with the
And killed by a drunk driver.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense for the guy that stayed at home just cruising around.
Seeing it for the first time and taking in the entire movie, while there are like ups and downs emotionally throughout the movie, it's pretty much you're kind of just hanging out with these kids, laughing, having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought it was actually kind of nice to throw in at the end, like what 1962 was leading into, or what was on the precipice at that point, and a lot of not fun stuff in American history. And so maybe it put a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but I was appreciative that that stuff was in there.
Yeah, it was relevant. And you see Ron Howard never fulfills his dreams at all.
Yeah.
Sells insurance.
stays in town.
Again, because I hadn't made it to the end, I'd forgotten about that part. I love it. I mean, you guys maybe read this or knew this already, but Lucas was originally supposed to make Apocalypse Now. He was the one.
No, I didn't realize that.
Him and Spielberg and Coppola and John Milius, all those guys were buds, right? They all went to USC, was one of the very first film schools. So all those guys met and they all gave each other points on each other's movies, right? And like obviously Lucas develops Indiana Jones, but then Spielberg directs the first one of the best movies of all time. I don't know if there's enough cars in that for us to do it on the pod, but there's the great Mercedes truck scene where he like bends the Mercedes thing off the front grille. But they were all buds, and originally developing Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness was a Lucas thing. And, they're young liberal guys. He was going to go to Vietnam and film that movie in Vietnam using like real soldiers and stuff. And I read an interview one time where he's like, yeah, a bunch of kids who dodged the draft were actually willing to go to Vietnam if they could make a movie there, but didn't want to. Wow. So fascinating stuff. And then Coppola obviously takes over the project and makes one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, and George Lucas ends up making his Vietnam film of Star Wars. A lot of people consider that to be his.
Of course. Almost everything was about it at the time. But it is fascinating. Again, the long 50s, the 60s really start when Beatles come, and then we start sending a bunch of young guys over to Vietnam just a couple of years later. Fascinating stuff. What else should we talk about?
Magic Carpet Airlines.
Oh, the DC-7?
DC-7.
Love the DC-7.
But Chris, jingle for airplane talk.
It's my aeroplane.
Not a real airline, made up for the film, but I think it's a kind of a perfect ending scene of the kid who you don't expect.
Yeah,
right,
they
is
flip.
the one.
Yep.
They flip their storylines, and Curt is actually going to be the one who at the beginning of the film is second guessing their choices they're making, doesn't want to leave town, but by the end of this, he's like, I'm going to be the one who goes, flies off on his magic carpet.
Yeah, it's great.
Did you catch what airport that was too?
It's somewhere in the East Bay. Was it? Where was it?
Buchanan Airfield, which is in Pleasant Hill, Concord.
Yeah, okay. Love that. Gone now, right? I'm sure
it's
that's
still operating.
Oh,
You want to
interesting.
fly some private planes around.
I love that they fire up the motors on the DC-7 and takes off and everything. It's cool. Some radial engine madness.
One movie that obviously popped into mind when watching this was Grease, and I had to go look up when the Grease movie came out, which was 78, but the Grease musical actually came out in 72. Or maybe there was already kind of that nostalgia for that era coming out in other ways, but I just found that interesting.
Slightly less authentic car culture in Greece than in...
I was in Greece twice. Once in high school and once in college. I was a
Hey.
Thunderbird in both of them. Were you, Cam? Were
I
you
was
in
in Greece in high school as well.
Excellent.
Were you Kaniki? I could see you as Kaniki.
I was-
Totally Kaneki.
I was Danny.
You were Zuko.
Oh,
Zuko. There you go.
dude.
Yep.
Good for you. Do you do
Yeah.
some pointing dancing?
Oh yeah, and there are no videos out there of it. So
Thank God.
So at some point you would have to have a car for multiple scenes where there was a car in the musical. I always thought it was funny. The first time an Edsel came on my radar was that our prop director, when she was making this very tiny little box thing out of wood and foam and everything, decided she wanted to make it a joke. And so she looked up like, what is the most embarrassing car to be seen in the 50s? And she found an Edsel. And so she made an Edsel grill for that car, which at the time I didn't really understand the point of it. But then it was funny to see it again come up in this film.
Shout out Edsel. Shout out Ryan Huber, Edsel fans. I loved rewatching it. I love doing this with you guys. To me, I romanticize the era when cars mattered so much in culture in general. So I just like that, right? If you were a kid, you just had to be, cars meant freedom. They meant getting away from your parents. So it's an easy era for me to romanticize. And it's a good hang, like you said, Cam. It's good to just hang with people who are doing that stuff.
yeah.
Zach, this was a
Yeah,
great
that
suggestion
covers it.
by you.
Yeah. All right. Glad I wasn't a total letdown. What are you going to do next?
I don't know. Le Mans, Grand Prix. I have a really long list that I'll show you guys after this.
It would be nice to change eras.
Yeah.
For sure. To jump something a little bit more modern maybe and then come back.
Beck was so bored watching this.
It was a
"Can we
little slow."
please just do Brad Pitt Formula One.
Yeah. Oh, I would actually love to do that. Oh, Ford versus Ferrari. We were talking about, if you remember, there's the scene in Ford versus Ferrari where John Bernthal playing, I can't remember, whoever Bernthal's playing, who's like a PR guy for Ford, and he's talking about recapturing the youth. Like, we need to build the Mustang to
memory.
capture the... Right. He's the one. I think a lot of that is not totally accurate. I'd actually,
for
that
sure.
one would be fun to fact check. And also, that's former podcast guest, AJ Baime, wrote the book that's based on. We love
hell.
Ayakoka.
Ayakoka, that's
shoot.
right. Yes, good call. But same idea of like, oh, we need to pull the youth back in. Zach, to your point about like multiple waves of kids and car culture having primacy in the American popular culture, like that's mid 60s, him trying to pull everyone back in with the Mustang. Or at least that's the argument in the movie. That'd be a good one. I wouldn't mind doing that one. Rush is another
Rush
one
would
that I
be
really
great.
want to do. That's a fun one. Both of those require very big fact checking sessions.
that'd be
And like, the one thing that's really nice about this is it's pretty authentic, right? Like it's done by a car guy and written by a car guy, and the cars are legit and were built for the movie. It's very authentic.
Rush is actually a great one off of this because it's Ron Howard.
Oh, good tie-in. How many degrees of separation for Duvall? That's your job to figure that out.
I will do it.
What a treat, boys. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for listening. As always, you can send feedback to podcast@bringatrailer.com. We will catch you next time.